recording. All right. Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's presentation, Creating Content Systems that Generate Qualified Leads with Brittany Odo. I am Jasmine. I'm just filling in for Shanae as she makes her way to her destination. She will be on shortly. But Brittany, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And if you have a presentation to share as well, I will stop sharing and then you can go ahead and put yours up there. Let me do that. Okay, and then you are on mute. I'm gonna go ahead and say hello. You're fine.
Sorry about
You're
that.
totally fine.
Let me share my
Perfect.
screen.
Hmm.
Let me know when you can see my presentation.
Yes, we got it.
Okay, perfect.
Hmm.
And then let me move this. Let me move you guys over here so
Oh
I
yeah.
can I minimize it? No, it's just makes you disappear. So I'll just leave it up on the side here. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, I will jump in. So yeah, we're going to talk about creating consistent, purposeful, lead generating content.
Yeah.
Um, and a little bit about me. My name is Brittany Odo, like I said. I am the CEO of ATB Social, which is a award-winning content and social media marketing agency. So we create content for businesses of all shapes and sizes and industries. I also work in marketing full time. I actually work in travel marketing. I work at the Conventions and Visitors Bureau for the city of Cleveland, Ohio. So I live and love Cleveland. Writing's my passion. I've always been a lover of being able to say the things that I have trouble saying when I talk through writing. I love traveling. We actually just took our first international trip last year to St. Lucia, which was super fun. Um, love video games. Sims is my favorite game. I'm also a cat mom to Luna. She is around here somewhere where I don't know, but she might pop in here just so you guys know. And I am a nerd about systems. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about not only creating content, but creating content systems um, that help make content a lot easier. So for the agenda, I just have four things that we'll tackle today. So, first one being content strategy, the next one being content systems, the next one being creating content 101, and then reporting. So, all the fun stuff. You'll probably be tired of the word content by the time this presentation is over. Awesome. So, I will jump right into it. And I definitely have places for like questions too. So if there are questions, just let me know. Uh, so first up, creating a content strategy. So your content strategy is a guide that helps you create content for your business. So just like when a lot of times, you're starting a business, you are creating a business plan to like get that started. So this is very similar to before you start your business and you create your plan before you start your content. It's really great to have a strategy that helps guide you through the process of creating. And there are a few things you should be sure to include in your strategy, and we'll go more in depth into these. But the six main things are your business and content goals, your target audience insights, so who you're trying to reach, your branding, which I think is very important, your content types, frequency, and topics. So that's kind of like the more nitty gritty of your content strategy. Industry research, which I'll talk more about, and your CTA, so your call to actions, like what you want people to do after they've read your content, like what's the next step. So we'll dive into those things. So the first thing, like I mentioned, is business and content goals. So, whatever your endeavor is, you likely have goals that you want to accomplish, and your content is meant to support your business. So it's good when you're creating your strategy to include your overall arching business goals, because you just want to have that in sight no matter what you're doing. So we want to have that in sight with our content, even though you will have two separate sections of your business goals and your content goals. So your content goals are going to be like your more specific KPIs or key performance indicators. So that's like, I want to reach certain amount of followers by the end of the year, or I want my engagement rate to go up 2%, or whatever that looks like. So, and where your business goals might be like, I want to have a certain amount, I want to reach a certain income goal by the end of the year, or I want to hire someone to help with this specific thing, like whatever that kind of things is. So they're a little different, but I think it's important to like keep in mind what your overall goal is when you're thinking of your content. Then your target audience insight. So this is who you're trying to reach. So you want to talk about what you already know about them. So that might be their demographics, who, their age, their sex, their gender, all that type of stuff. Then other things you want to consider are things like their buying patterns. Are they type of people who are, out, they will just buy immediately. If you put like a affiliate link, they're like, yes, I'm gonna go snatch that up. Or they more type of that need like research, and they need like, maybe they want to talk more about it, or they need to see more content in order to actually go forward. So you want to think about those things, and you want to include that on your strategy. And then you also want to talk about how you transform them. So how does your content, how does your overall business transform them? So, is it that, for example, like with my clients, maybe they started off as someone who has a really good understanding of content, but they don't have they don't have the time to really know everything it is about the trends, and what kind of content to post, and what's new and what's different on social media. So the transformation is that their content goes from this place of like, we don't know these things, we're having a hard time keeping up, and they transform to having a robust social media strategy that is helping their business meet their business goal, helping meet their business goals. So those are just kind of some things that I try to include when we're thinking about the target audience. Like, yes, like who they are, who their demographics are, but like even more in depth that we can go into that person is even better, because when you're creating content and you have those like things in mind, it makes it a lot easier.
I have a question, if I can ask, Brittany.
Yes.
Going back to your target audience,
Yes.
I've always had a question about this, and I feel like I've never gotten a clear answer, like with research or just talking to people about this. So, is your target audience? So, for me, for example, I already have an audience. I've been online for a long time, and I feel like my audience has shifted. The content has shifted. So, in your opinion, is your target audience, are they people that you are seeing consume your content, or are they people that you aspire to have as your audience members, if that even makes sense? And then an example is that I feel like even like right now with the content that I'm creating, um, I I'm grateful for everybody that is watching my content. I love the
Yeah.
people, but I feel like they're not my people, if that makes sense. And it's because we're told to like feed the algorithm, and so because when you're feeding the algorithm, you're using key terms and trending topics and all the things, but it's, grabbing all these random people from all over the place. Are
Yeah.
these random people your target audience, or is it okay to kind of like craft this avatar of a person so that we can hopefully get the specific community of people eventually, I guess, if it makes sense?
Yes, that's a great question. And I definitely, when I think of target audience, I definitely think of the people that you want to attract, like the people who you really want to be like consuming your content, or, taking the next step, whatever that looks like. And I think that, it's always going to be, it'll be difficult to like, basically what you want to do with your target audience is you want to be thinking about them, so when you're writing your content, you're writing for that person. And so people who don't fit that that mold, they might not find your content very interesting, or they might not be that person. But the people who are, the people who you write the content for, they're reading it and they're like, oh, that is me. That's what I relate to. And it's definitely more about like reaching out to that specific person and not to a whole audience of people. That's a good question. Yeah, and
Thank you. That
it's
makes
tough
sense.
too, because like, feeding the algorithm and like reaching everyone. But it's a lot of times, especially if you're like creating like content that's so personal to you, your journey, or motherhood, things like that, and like there's like this guy who knows nothing about that. It's kind of like, so it's definitely, you're like, where did you come from and why? uh,
Exactly. Thank you.
so
Mm,
yeah, definitely, when we create like our target audience, like for our client strategy, I kind of give them not a name, but I give them like we try to like give them like some sort of indicator of who they are. So like for my yoga studio client, she wants to attract people who want to be yoga teachers. So that's like one. So it might be like aspiring yogis, and then another one is like just like yoga enthusiasts. So that's a different audience of hers, of people who don't necessarily want to be teachers, but they want to like go to her class and her studio. They want to like learn more about yoga. They want to like go to yoga classes, and then we have a separate audience that's yoga teachers. So like if you don't fit within those, we're posting content about yoga, about how to, what things to bring to your first yoga class, and what kind of classes do we offer, like class spotlights. We're doing like, here's what you get when you do her teacher training. So like if you're not in that audience, you're not really going to resonate with that. But those are the people we want to target, because those are the people that she wants to bring into her studio.
that makes so much sense. So it's like kind of reverse engineering it all too, just like it really starts with how you're presenting the content. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank
It's a
you.
great question. Awesome. So we'll move on to branding. So this is actually from my content strategy. This is my branding. But there's a few things you want to include in your content strategy. So first thing is, I always think is super important. It's not the funnest part of branding, but your brand tone, your messaging. Like, what vibe do you want to get off? Do you want to give off? Do you want to have like a more friendly, more informal vibe? Do you want to have more professional, more like buttoned up type of vibe? How do you say things? How do you write things? Because that's, what you write is just as important as what they see when you're writing, when you're coming up with content and captions and things like that. So that's something. One tool that I really love is, I use Grammarly a lot, because I am the queen of spelling mistakes. But they also have a tool, it's called their tone detector, and you can actually take your captions that you write, put them onto Grammarly, and it will tell you what your tone is, basically. So when I put in ours, our tone was friendly, informal, confident. And so like if that's the way you're trying to go, that's great. If not, you want to figure out how to make those changes in your messaging. But I think that's really important. And I do that with all my clients. We go through and make sure, the tone matches what they want. Is this the vibe that you want, or is it not? And then, of course, the fun stuff: visual branding, your fonts, your colors, your logos, um, any variations you might have, bonus points for like when to use them. So, for example, like on ours, we have like our standard logo. We have a pink version, we have a silver version. We have different fonts for different things. So that's kind of like just like the basic things that you would kind of see on our brand. So it's like taking your more robust brand and make it a little tight, smaller version for your strategy. So when you're creating content, you already know like, okay, here's what we want the content to look like. Um, Now getting more into like the content itself. The couple things that you want to make sure is on your strategy, what types of content you're creating. So this is more just like like the actual format of the content. So for Instagram, you're creating reels and you're creating carousels, you know, that might be the types that you're creating. And for Facebook, you might be linking to other content, or you might just be doing photos or videos or whatever that is. So we try to differentiate what type of content we're creating on different channels. Then frequency of how often you're posting. So I often get asked this question of like how often should we be posting? And just from like working with our clients, we've noticed that around 2 to 3 times per week seems to be like a really good sweet spot for clients who are like huge and clients who are small. We seem like that's kind of like the best. We try to do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday is like our like ideal posting schedule. But I always say that, like, especially if you're a solo, you know, you're the main creator of the content. I always say, you know, however much content you can create, that's high quality. So if you're only able to create 1 post a week and it's really good, I would say do that versus creating 3 posts a week and 2 of them aren't so good, or they're kind of rushed, or they, you know, you're not excited about that content. And then lastly, content types. So this is like the things that you want, or that's supposed to say topics. Sorry, see, queen of typos, Whitney Grammarly. That's supposed to say content topics. So these are the things you want your content to be about. So like your industry, your products, your advice that you have. If you're creating lifestyle content, you know, what is that? Like you said, Jasmine, like I would be like motherhood, you know, living in Ecuador, travel, like that's your content topics. So, and how you can go as in depth into that as you want, but you want to make sure that that's included on your strategy. And then lastly, your industry research and CTAs. So, and this could be more relevant for like if you're, my cat is in the background making sounds. But your content, your industry research is going to be places. There's kind of like a distinct difference between industry research and CTAs. So your industry research is external places to find different things. So for example, for my yoga studio client, again, like when we have our list of links of industry research, we link to like yogabasics.com, yogaalliance.org. These are places we can find more topics about yoga, especially for like us, since we're not, you know, the yoga experts, we're creating content for a yoga studio. We want to be those, we want to portray ourselves as experts by being able to know where to find this stuff. So you know, maybe, you know, for you, Jasmine, it might be like, but maybe it's motherhood blogs, or like maybe it's the Ecuador travel site. Like maybe they have stuff on there that you could, you know, give you inspiration, or just have an idea of like what kind of content that they have. And this part is also really good for when you're, you know, if you're ever at a point where you have someone else also working on you with your content. So you know, for me, for like ATB Social, I create the strategies, and then I have a writer who actually implements the strategies. So I want to make sure they have everything that they need in order to actually go ahead and start writing. So if you know, my writer's not a yoga expert, I want to make sure she has the links and things that she needs to find that information. So if you're thinking about your business, and like if you're thinking about your blog, or you know, your YouTube channel, and scaling it to, you know, if it's just you now and you want to scale it, if you have a strategy, you can say, here's my strategy, bam, run with it. Here's a place where you can find all the things to talk about if you need that kind of help. So I really love that section, because I think even from like a business standpoint, it's great. It's like a great manifestation tool. Like eventually someone else is going to need this information, not just me. And then your CTAs are your internal places. So where you're promoting online, your CTAs are, you know, your call to action. So like your links to your services, your blog, your contact page, your other communities, your Facebook page, your Facebook group, your email newsletter, you know, whatever that looks like. How other places they can find you besides like social media.
I have a question.
Yes.
In terms of the strategy and bringing other people on board,
yes,
how do you present it to them? What is the layout? Is it in presentation style? How do you present it to them?
So it's actually a PDF. We do a PDF. I created in Canva, because I like to make it, cute and branded. So I make a PDF in Canva, and we actually have like a template that I made that we kind of just reuse. And yeah, so that's how I present it to them. I give them a PDF, and maybe I'll do like a Zoom video with them and talk it through with them, see if they have any questions. But yeah, it's most of the time it's pretty much a PDF. It's about like between like 10 to 15 pages long, because each section has like its own page. Like the branding page itself was like 2 pages. This is 2 pages of the PDF. So yeah.
And your strategy includes everything that you're going over right now.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. That's a great question. Cool. So that's really the most important things you want to include on your strategy. Like other things I would say that I didn't include on this, like for my strategy, like I always create a page for like my team members, like who is working on it. So if you're, eventually scaling out and like hiring other people or bringing other people on, I include a section that says like, here's who this person is, here's how to contact them, and here's what they do. So like, because we have one person who like schedules content, when I do the strategy, one person writes it. So I like to include everyone, so everybody's on the same page on who does what. So that's like another section. Obviously, like I'll put like an agenda. Normally, like here's how to find it. If you just want to look at the branding stuff, it's on page 4. Like a table of contents type of thing. Yeah, these are like the main things that I include on my strategy. And in an overview of the company as well. So I'll write like a paragraph about what ATP Social is about, or whatever the client, whatever their, what their business is about. I'll like a nice little summary as well, normally on the same page as the goals.
I like how you mentioned Grammarly, because I use Grammarly for my emails. But the thing is, sometimes you don't even pay attention to how things can intersect. Because I could be checking a tone in my content, but it never really crossed my mind till you mentioned it. I'm like, oh yeah, it does give the tone, because I'm always looking when it'll suggest like, this is clear, this is confident.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. And you saying it just brought it to the forefront for me.
Yay, that's good. Yeah, I know. I love that feature. It's like, it's amazing. And yeah, it's a great way to like figure out where you are and like where your content is. So it's like it's the tools that we have.
Exactly.
Awesome. Any other questions before we move into content systems?
I don't have a question. This is just good so far, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to like get down to like figure this out, because now I'm like,
yay!
Yeah,
awesome.
good.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Awesome. All right, let's move into content systems. I love content systems. I could probably do a whole spiel about systems, but I did condense this down to 3 slides because I didn't want to overwhelm people, because sometimes talking about systems can be overwhelming. So if it is, just let me know if you have any questions. And I'm going to go through, just like with the strategy, like I went through the exact strategy that I put together for myself, for my clients. This is the same thing. This is the system that I use for myself, for my clients, and how that works. So content systems. So now that you've created your strategy, it's time to get in there and create a system that allows you to easily implement it. So we're going to talk about content calendars, because that is how our team manages our content system. So this is actually a photo of one of our older version of a content calendar. I just included that one because I like the photos in it, but you can kind of get an idea like what the content calendar looks like. And I'll go more in depth about what each section is. But a couple of things you can see here is there is a stage. This program we use is called Airtable. That's the program that we use, and I do use a free version. It's a lot more limiting now than it was when I first started using it, but you can pretty much get away with using it for free, especially if it's just you or you have like a small team. But a couple things, obviously like posting times and dates are on here. obviously your captions and your photos and things like that. But we also, we try to be very purposeful with our content. And I'm going to go more in depth into this when we talk about creating content. But we actually like categorize all of our content. Like every post has a different category based on the type of post that it is. And I'll talk more about that, but that's just something that we include in our calendars. And then a stage. So whatever stage the post is at. So like, is it approved? Is it needs editing? Is it being written? Is it being, whatever that is. So basically trying to be very organized, especially when we're working with other people and getting their, we're writing content for someone else. It's really important to be organized, but even so, same for when you're creating content for yourself, because if you do scale your business, you want to be able to hand something to someone, because a lot of times what I see with people when they hire like a social media manager, and they struggle with working with that manager, typically is because the social media manager either doesn't have a system, or they think that you have a system and they are going to follow that system. So if you don't have a system in place, you either have to rely on their system, which they may or may not have, or you need to have a system that you say, here's the system, and now you need to do the content. Because if you're, you can be super creative. I notice for like myself, because I'm very creative, and I know a lot of you are also very creative. Sometimes these are the parts that we kind of lack at. We got to slack at the like organization part, because we want to be creative. And so, but when you have these seamless systems, I've noticed it's so much easier to be creative, because you're not like fumbling around every single month with the system part of it and the implementation part. You're just going in and you're creating. And that's really what I try to make with my writers. Like, your job is to create. It's not to do all the other stuff. It's not to worry about this and that and the other. Your job is to create and use your creative thinking and juices on just creating content. So that was a long spiel. Still, even if I condense it to 3 slides, I'm still. But let's talk more about content calendars. So what I love about content calendars, it allows you to plan your content out. It allows you to keep it all organized and in one place. And most importantly, it allows you to batch your content out in advance. That's the best part about content calendars. We create our content calendars for our clients a month in advance. So we're working on February calendars. We had our January calendars done in December. So we plan out in advance. And of course, things change, and you might need to move things around, but we like to have at least a good plan of what we want to talk about the month prior. So you'll see here, this is actually one of my clients. This is a calendar, very recent. This is from last month, what our calendars look like. So it's a little more, we got a little more robust for sure. But basically, you'll just notice that when it comes to like our system, the way that we do it is we start here. This is like, I can't remember what this is called. I think it's like the notes section, or I think it's the prompt. So the prompt is like, what do you want this post to be about? And then the next part is like where the status is. So like all these are scheduled, because this is December's calendar, and I just took a screenshot of it the other day. So these are done. And then the date that they're posting. This is the type of post. So is it a static post? Is it a story? Is it a reel? Some notes in here, like for example, I might write a note like, hey, like this one's like the audio link for a reel. Like this is the link to get the audio. Yes, Luna, did you have something to add? She's very passionate about content calendars. Yeah, your captions, your hashtags. There's some other things too, but these are like the most important ones. That's why they're in the front. But to get more in depth in like how our system runs, when you have a seamless system, you're able to create content seamlessly, and you're able to stay consistent without burning out. So you need to ask yourself, if you want to put together a system, is what parts are in your system and who is the person who is getting that piece done. So, and or what tool you're using. So for example, here's like what our system kind of looks like. So number 1 is strategy. So that's the plan. That's what we went through in the beginning. I'm in charge of that. I'm responsible of making sure we have our strategy, making sure it's, I go through that with the client, make sure that the writer understands that. Now, in some cases, there's a part that's not here, and that's when I was talking about that section here that's called prompts. So if a lot of times if we're just starting out with a client and I'm having a new writer work on them, I will go in here and I will write out what the prompts are. So I will go into our Airtable calendar and I'll write out, we're going to do a holiday gift guide. We're going to do a post about, holiday spirit story. We're going to do a post about holiday hours. This is December. So there's a lot of holiday stuff. But I'll write this part in so they know when they get to the calendar where to start. I already know what this post is supposed to be about.
Question.
Yes.
Is that are the prompts based on the categories that you've already selected for that particular post, or do you do the prompt before you do the category?
Yeah, typically we do the prompt before the category. And more so it's going to be like more like when we put that strategy together and we talked about like content topics, CTAs, those are normally like more the starting point. So like for example, like for this client, we knew they were doing a holiday gift guide. That was one of the that was like one of the CTAs on their website, was that they're putting together a holiday gift guide. And so that's a CTA, and that is a that's a prompt that we're going to work on. So that's kind of where the prompts come from, and they can really come from anywhere. And when I go into like creating content, I'll kind of talk more about that. But yeah, they really can come from anywhere. Whatever it is that you want to talk about at the time is a prompt. If I want to talk about, everybody's talking about AI, I'll write AI, and so the writer knows like we're talking about AI in this post. So the prompts more so are just more based on whatever it is that you want to focus on for that month. But good question. So that's like a sort of kind of thing that is sometimes in our strategy or in our system, and your system may look however you want it to look, but that's kind of like one thing that we'll do sometimes. But if not, if we don't have a prompt, we just go straight into writing. Once we get the strategy done, it's time to write. So maybe there's one person who works on the captions and one person on the captions and the hashtags, and maybe you have another person who does like the graphics and the video and the imagery, or maybe you have like a photographer who like did your photos for you or something like that. Whatever that looks like, and you might have it switched. You might start with your imagery first and then do your captions. Whatever that looks like, you just need to figure out what that looks like what comes next. Then typically there's another part as well that I didn't include here, which is the editing part. So like I said, I'll do the strategy, then I have a writer who does the writing, and most of the time they also do the graphics, and then it comes back to me and I do the editing, because I'm like have more of that one-on-one with the client, so I'll do that part, and then it goes to the client normally for a review. But in your case, if you're just working on your content, it's going to go to the next part, which is the publishing. And that's where you're going to post it to the platforms. That also could be something that if you have like a virtual assistant, that could be something that you outsource as well. So that's like, we use a software called Hootsuite. It's a social media scheduler. I'm sure you guys probably know about Hootsuite, and that publishes. We schedule it out and publish it onto the platforms at whatever date the content calendar says for that post to go out. So it's just kind of knowing like, what does your system look like? Are you, how do you get from point A, which is having, your strategy, to point B? You're actually putting that post up on the interwebs for people to see and to view and to love it and to think you're amazing. So figuring out each piece of the puzzle, figuring out who does what and how they do it. And the most important part of that is to be consistent with it and to follow that. Even if you're only creating content once a week, or like up to a week in advance. So, this week on Monday, I know I am writing captions and I'm putting together the graphics. And once I'm done with that, I send it to my virtual assistant and she will publish it. And then the next week I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing my writing, I'm doing my graphics, setting it up, sending it to my virtual assistant. She, whatever that looks like. Or I'm writing out the prompts on Monday, and next is, and we actually have this visualized in our, like, we use a project management software called ClickUp, and we actually have this visualized for us for each of our clients. So we have like, this is the writing, this is graphics, this is scheduling, and we actually move a client from here to here based on wherever they are in the funnel at whatever time. So I can go in right now and I can see that this client is in the writing phase, this client is in the schedule their post out phase, this client's in the prompts stage. I need to make some prompts, or someone needs to make prompts. So it helps us, so I can always know here's where my clients are in the funnel, and I know that the next step is right here, which is whatever that is next, which might be like client review or whatever, or editing. So that's really the hard part, is just getting yourself to figure out what works best for you. Because you might try a certain system. You might say like, okay, I'm going to do it this way. And then it all falls apart. And you're like, okay, that did not work. So you might have to try a different way and say, okay, that didn't work, but I actually do get more done if I do it this way, or I get a little bit of help with this part, or I, whatever that looks like. So it really just comes down to finding out what works best for you and then being consistent with it. Every month we do the same system every month, and that's how we're able to stay consistent with our clients, how we're able to seamlessly create content every month without us all going absolutely insane.
This is so cool. I'm just like, like I said before we started the call, like, oh my goodness, I need systems because I feel so disorganized with things. And like, you are where I aspire to be. I just aspire to be organized so that I can then, I guess, work without the emotion of it and just be like, okay, I have the plan, I have the calendars, I have the systems, and regardless if I'm feeling whatever that day, I'm still gonna post it because I planned to do it. So that's where I want to get to.
Yes, I love that. And I think also too, like, especially if you're the main person that's doing it, you're the only person, I think it also is a great way to like think about, when you're in those times and you're not able to post, maybe you'll be at a point where you can have like a virtual assistant who comes in every couple hours and just post content. And like, but and having the system now putting in place with you by yourself will make it so much easier when you want to bring in that virtual assistant for a couple hours, and she just posts content for you. She posts the content you created. Having that like in the back of your mind, like, I'm doing this so one day I don't have to do this. Like, that's always like my biggest motivation for putting together a process. Like, I'm doing this now. It sucks. I hate it. This is the most tedious thing I've ever done. It's the worst. But one day, this won't be my problem. Because I'll be bringing in the income. I'll be able to bring someone else in, even if it's just a couple hours, and maybe it grows as we grow, whatever that looks like. But that's like always my biggest motivation. Like, one day it won't be me. Right now it's me and it sucks. But maybe one day it won't be.
One of the biggest takeaways for me is the strategy, because that's the thing that I've been working on over these past couple of months, is my strategy to help. For me, I'm feeling foggy because I have the strategy in my brain, but I don't have it mapped out in my brain. Like, it's like in mind map mode right now.
Yeah.
In my brain. And what I need to do is really take it out and take those parts out and make it into a template, make it into a plan where somebody else can then come and follow. Because like you said, just being able to scale is only possible with systems and being able to communicate, allowing people to do the work without me having to be there. And so as long as they have the tools, which we have to create those tools for them to then be able to do the work. So that's one of the things that I've been heavily focused on, is my strategy.
Yes, I totally understand what you mean. Like, we know what we want a lot of times in our head, but it's like we have to put that out there. We have to put it somewhere write it out, whatever that looks like. So, eventually it is, even if you don't scale, you maybe find, or not that you don't scale, but you find that like, this is something I actually like doing and I want to keep doing it. Just having that, even just for yourself, can be a huge help. Like having something written down that I don't have to keep it in my head and like bog my brain down with that. I can just go find whatever I wrote. It does so many wonders. It's just always hard to do that because you're like, this sucks. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. In terms of categories, what would you say, what are some ideas that you have around creating categories for your brand?
That's a great question. I actually have that coming up. You're ahead of the game. So, any questions before I move on to creating 101? Okay. Creating content 101. Okay, so when I came up with creating content 101, this is like starting from ground zero. Like, maybe I just put my strategy together, or whatever that looks like. We're just getting started. So, but it also can help you if you're been doing this for forever and you just want to like know where to start. Maybe you just like, you sit down and you're like, I don't even know where to start. Even if you've been doing this for a long time. That happens to me, so I'm sure it happens to all of us. But the great thing is you can start with your strategy. So with your strategy, you have already built a solid foundation to help you with creating. So here are some sections in the strategy that we talked about earlier that you can use for inspiration. So number one is your target audience. So what do you want to say to or about this person? So if you know that your target audience is new mothers, then that right there is, you can find a whole wealth of topics about new mothers. You can research it yourself. You probably already have some things that you want to talk about that. So that's a really good place to start. Who are you talking to? Maybe you want to talk about that, about that person, or like, oh, as a new mother, it's really hard. You're really, you're really tired sometimes. Whatever that kind of looks like, where you're able to kind of zero in on them. And the best part is if you're, talking about them, then you're talking to them and they can relate. So you're already like ahead of the game. Then your content topics. So if you already listed out your topics in your content strategy, that's a great place to start. What do you want to address? So thinking about what's in my content topics. So, we're a social media agency. So things that are in our topics are tips about social media, tips and tricks, advice about social media, about content creation systems. That's a huge thing because that's a part of my business that we feel like is unique. A lot of social media managers don't talk about their system. They just talk about content creation. So that's something that's in our topics. What else? Things about our business. So like our client testimonials. That's something like things that you don't want to forget. For like our yoga studio, they're really focused on wellness as well as yoga. So they're not just like on the practice of yoga, but like how to take care of your whole body and like be very mindful of yourself. So we have a lot about wellness tips, yoga for beginners, yoga teaching. So it's really like, what is it that you want to say? Like, and you might start off, in your strategy, you might start off broad, and you just kind of get more in depth, especially as time goes on. Cause like a social media tip that that social media tips is a topic that I talk about, but my tips from 2020 are different than my tips for today. So, it kind of it changes a lot, and a lot of it is based on who you're talking to, your industry, and just what you personally want to talk about. Like that's important. Like that's always important to me. Like, what is it that I want? Like a lot of times I'll just sit down and I'll say, what is it that's, what's just something that's been not like nagging at my brain that I want to talk about, that I want to say, and just say that, just put it out there, just make that a prompt. And then industry research. So like what, you just created that in the industry research section of your strategy. You have like links to different places, that are relevant in your industry. So what trends are happening right now? Is there an opinion about something that your audience would be interested in? The actual like content systems came from a call I had with someone, and they told me that, they hired, it was actually multiple calls I had people. They're like, oh, I'm coming to you because I worked with the so-and-so, and the content, like they never created content, or like they would go like months without posting or something like that. And it made me think, like, why is it that we don't have that problem with our clients? Why is it that we don't? And it was like, well, we have a really good system, and that's how we, like, just from that conversation, it was like, oh, light bulb, like we need to start talking about this. We need to create content around this. We need to like really think about and get more in depth into it. So that's an opinion about your industry. That's something you can talk about. A lot of times having like something to say, like especially like taking a stance, or like may seem even controversial statement about something, it gets conversations going. It gets engagement. It gets people like who understand you and feel the way that you feel more. They feel more connected when they hear your opinion on whatever it is that might be. So those are that's a way to start with your strategy. So you can use our content guidelines. So these are the categories that I was talking about. So at ACV, we really believe that each post is supposed to serve a purpose. So we're really big on purposeful content, like not just posting to post. And this is how we ensure that we create impactful content, by categorizing each post. So every post, we have 4 categories, and each post that we create for a content for a client falls within this category. So the very first one is engagement. So these are posts that are meant to get people to like and comment. It might not always be like directly related sometimes, but it boosts your engagement on your profile. So example would be like birthday wishes, holidays, like happy or Merry Christmas, like those types of posts, memes, the thing, inspirational or motivational stuff. Might not always be so like directly like we're a content marketing agency, so like it might not always be like super relevant to say like happy Christmas or whatever, but it's those posts that get comments and they get likes, and they boost engagement on your entire profile. So those are those types of posts, and I normally say to have about 30% of those posts. The next post is your lead generation post. We talked about this is going to be about lead generating. So this is about spotlighting and qualifying your audience without directly promoting to them. So these are posts that only your target audience is going to find relevant or care about. So this might be like asking them a question that's related to your industry, or linking to different content or resources that only your ideal clients would want to know about. Controversial opinions about your audience, questions about your audience and what they do specifically. So this will be stuff where we're like, here's a post about content systems, and the end of the post might say, do you have a content system in place, and what does that look like? So if you're not someone who's interested in content or having a system, and you read this post, you're going to be like, I don't care about this. I'm just going to move on. But if you are someone, you're probably going to like it. You might comment, you might say something. And I'm not directly, promoting our business by saying like, do you have a content system? But in a way we are, because we're talking about something, we're giving value in a way that is directly pointing out who we want to talk to. We want to talk to someone who cares about this specific thing. And only the people that you want to relate to or you want to reach out to are going to feel that way, or feel like that content is for them. So I always say that that's what the type of content you want to create the most. And it's also sometimes the hardest content to create, because there's like a fine line between like promoting and not promoting. And there's also the fine line of like figuring out what it is that your audience wants to know about. And sometimes it's a little bit of like market research. It's a little bit of like figuring it, taking a stab in the dark and seeing what kind of response that you get. But I've noticed that a lot of times when we like especially like try something new, we typically get new responses and like find out of new people that we wouldn't have even thought about because we talked about something that was relevant to us and probably not relevant to everyone that we're is following us, but was really relevant to some of the people who are following us and who would probably be more likely to be our clients. So the two other types are your community building. So these are posts that are meant to lead your audience to other parts of your tribe. So this could be like leading them to your email list, leading them to your Facebook groups, normally things that are like free or low cost. Excuse me. This is the purpose of these types of posts is to build your community of qualified leads. So, this is going to be the post where you're like, join my email list to get such and such, or join our Facebook group to learn more about this, or, whatever that looks like for you. What is but beyond just social media? What's the next step? Where do they go next? That you can kind of be a little bit more personalized with your interactions with them. And you definitely want to try to have one place that's outside of social media, whether it's like a newsletter or a Facebook group or whatever that looks like. So you have a little bit more community, more opportunities to get in front of that person. And I say about 20% of your post should be about that. So like, for example, if I ever post about like, we have a 10-day content challenge, which is a 10-day challenge where we like give you different prompts of things to talk, like types of content to create. And whenever I post about that, that's about community building, because to sign up for that, you have to sign up for our newsletter. And so you sign up for our newsletter, you're in that and you get a part of that. So that's like a community building type of thing. It might be like your Facebook group, for example, your business and travel group. Like that's like another community builder. So like when you're posting about that, you're building your community. And then your promotional post. So that's that's your post that, we all know you're pointing them to whatever your offers are, your services, your products. This is the time when you brag about your company, your services, your results, and you lead people in. So this is like, head to the link in my bio to sign up, head to click the link to buy, those types of posts. We all know them. And you want to have about 10% of your content being that. And I say that because you're like, oh God, why only 10%? And it can vary, but the things you have to remember with social media is that Facebook and Instagram do not want you to promote things on their platforms without paying them advertising to do so. So if you're more than likely, if you're spending more than 10% of your time posting about buying things, you might see your engagement go down. You might see, you might get dinged for that in the large scale of things, because they don't want you to do that. They want you, especially as a business or even a content creator, to pay for advertising, pay to bring people in. But the good thing about these other posts is that they work the same. It's all promoting. Whenever you're posting about your business, you're always promoting your business. Even if I'm saying Merry Christmas, I'm always promoting my business, because in the little thing at the very top it says ATB Social, so you're always promoting yourself on social media. But you want to be sure that you're also really taking taking it all in, as far as like what people want to see on social media and what the platforms want to see on social media. And they definitely don't want to see you promoting. So that's kind of where we are with that. Even community building too. Like they don't, like these platforms don't want you sending people off the platform. So even if you're not selling stuff, linking off from Facebook, why would Facebook want to promote your post if you're linking to some other place that's not Facebook? Because they're big, where they're getting their revenues from advertising and people seeing ads. So you just have to be mindful about that type of stuff. And that's why really I say more so the lead generating engagement stuff, getting people to comment and like, because then they're more likely to see your posts if they're commenting and liking and things. And they're more likely to see your promotional posts, even if Facebook is trying to sabotage you.
One of the things that I have been struggling with, and I really love how you broke it down into these 4, because again, it takes this mind map in my brain and organize it. So I'm starting to see from my content and what I create where it would fit into each of these 4 places. And one of the things that I've struggled with is that lead generation piece. Somebody just knocked on my door, 1 second. And that's where I'm talking about travel marketing, tourism marketing, but I'm struggling to like have an angle or 1 second.
I will say though that, you know, that definitely the lead generating one tends to be the toughest one for sure. I think I would say when I'm thinking about like lead generating posts, and I thought I had examples on here. I do, yeah. But it's for me, it's always like those posts that are like when I'm giving value is when I'm generating leads, because like when I'm telling someone about something or giving them advice or giving them something specific, I often do not say like, I normally do not say like, if you want to work with us because you saw this value, click the link in our bio. I normally say like, if this was, you know, relevant for you, like save it or comment below. So it's those types of posts where I'm not there. It's like there's an agenda, but you don't know there's an agenda type of thing, which is like a weird way to say that. But yeah, those ones definitely take some time to really get good at them, and it can change over time. Like you might be trying to attract different audiences, so you might have a lead generating post that's more for your audience of people who want to travel to Ecuador, and something that's for your people who are mothers. You know, it might be different, you know, depending on what you really want to happen. So I definitely understand that it can be challenging, but I think the biggest thing is for me is like, if I'm giving really good value and the value is good, but it's only good to people who understand or who would be real like good ideal clients or ideal followers, then those are probably the posts where you're lead generating. Other places to start with content. So special days. So this is like really great low hanging fruit. Every single day is a special holiday. And you can find all of them online. So if you type in special holidays or special days, you will find a calendar that has a day for everything. There's probably 13 different days today. Happy popsicle day, happy, you know, it's like all those weird little things. Like I have one client where we find them all the time because they're like they're like a mall. So they have like different vendors, you know, all these different vendors. So like they all sell something different. So I was like, oh my God, it's National Pie Day. We can talk about this one vendor. Oh my God, it's Coffee Day. Let's talk about this other one. So we find those all the time. But you could definitely find those and find ways to tie it back to your business. Like for business ones, I found like there was like National Virtual Assistants Day or something like that, or National Assistance Day. So I made a post about my virtual assistant, or like National like relax day. And like a lot of my messaging is like, you know, we're managing your social media so you don't have to, so you can like relax, you know. So that's kind of like, we'll tie that in that way. So just finding those little things is a good place. Like if you're struggling with your content calendar, like you want to, like you're trying to break your content calendar out and you're like, I don't know what, you know, I'm struggling. Look at that calendar and see if there's things where you can even put filler posts in, and make something kind of lighthearted. And normally those are like engagement type posts, but those are good to have. So current events. So take a look at what's relevant and trending. In the social media world, award season is just like, every social media manager is making memes about awards season, like every single one. So like finding those current things that are happening, like even if it's outside your industry, like make connections. So like if there's like funny things that happen at an awards ceremony, like people will repurpose it and make it about content and social media. And I'm like, I don't even know how you guys made that connection, but you made the connection. You made people who probably don't care about this, but they care about award shows because that's like such a big thing that now they're paying attention. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on all the time, and you might not think that that's relevant, but there's ways you can find. Obviously, you want to with that one, be sensitive to things like there's sometimes you can take a current event and say something that might not be correct. So you want to be like cognizant of that. But lighthearted stuff is always a good way to, and even if you do go into, harder topics or harder things, like sometimes that can help you. Like for me, I know like I had made a post around 2020 and like the July, June time where people were like really listening about the Black Lives Matter movement. And I had made like a post about that and people really connected to it. And it was like, it's not something I normally talk about on my page, but it was so current. It was so like heavy on my heart. I wanted to talk about it. And a lot of people resonated with it and actually did like, it did good things for my business. So, you might not always think like, ooh, is that something I should talk about? Or is that something I should get into? Cause it's not in my industry, but sometimes, if you find a way to make it happen and make it like relevant. And also like, obviously if it's something, sensitive or culturally or socially relevant, just making sure you take those into consideration when you're writing. And then of course, repurposing content. So, you've posted and created great content in the past. Take a look at some of your older stuff and see if there's ways that you can reuse it today. Even for this presentation. So there's actually 2 presentations that I combined into one because I had 2 presentations that were like really old. I made them like 2019, maybe 2020 time. And I was like, these are great, but like we've evolved past this type of, so I was like, all right, I gotta put, I gotta make this more relevant to today. So there's plenty of content that you've made in the past that you could repurpose. And if you think like, oh my God, like I've talked about this before, like the way the algorithms work, half your audience, 75% of your audience didn't even see that first post that you made about it. So don't feel like you can't say it again. And even if you have posted about it, doesn't mean you can't post about it again. So take a look at what you've written and see if there's ways that you can take that and repurpose it and make it even better or make it more current and relevant. And that is all I have for creating content. Before we move to reporting, which is just one slide, I promise. Is there any questions? Cool. Hi. Did you have a question, sir? He's like, no. All right, I don't want to do too much on reporting because like we just talked about systems and creating kind of like that's enough already. But I will just say that reporting is also a great way that you can help you with creating content. So looking at your insights, looking at your analytics. I know it sucks. I hate looking at that stuff sometimes. And sometimes it can be daunting, especially if you don't see what you want to see. But these are tools that help you create content. They help you measure your goals. Are we getting closer to that follower milestone or not? And why not? Is there something we can tweak? It helps you understand if your strategy is working or if you need to adjust it. So this is actually a screenshot from one of my clients' reports. And so you'll see that we don't report on everything. There's 5 million metrics you can report on. So understand what metrics are important to you based on your goals. Maybe you care about engagement rates. Maybe you care about followers. Maybe you care about reach. Maybe you care about profile visits, whatever it is, shares, whatever that looks like for you. What's most important for you? Because you're going to look at that thing, you're going to see a lot of metrics, and some of them maybe aren't relevant for what you want to do. So understand what's important for you. Review your metrics, your analytics consistently to track your progress. So we do a reporting for our clients every month. So every month they get a report about the previous month. So, whatever that looks like for you, maybe you track it every quarter, maybe you track it every month, maybe you track it every week. You can look at your analytics whenever. But try to be consistent about it and try to keep track of it, even outside of the platforms, especially for like Instagram, because they they wipe out your analytics after like so many months. So having like your own, like we create a little report every month, so I can always look back at February 2023, even if Instagram deleted it, because I kept track on my own. And then find ways to repurpose or recreate high performing content. So a lot of these platforms, they'll tell you what posts are performing well, and what posts are getting the most engagement or the most reach. See what it is about that post. Like see if you can look at that post and see why people are commenting more or why they liked it more. Was it the photo? Was it the, it takes a little bit of a detective work and you might not always get it right. But if you're having trouble figuring out what to write about, it's a good place to start and say, like, okay, well, last month I wrote about this and my audience really loved it. Was it the topic? Was it the photo? Was it the hashtags I used? Like, what was it? And see if you can recreate that and have similar success. And you might not, and you might, it's a lot of testing and figuring out. But it's a good way to get yourself using the tools at hand to create the content that you want to create, and that makes a difference. So yeah, any questions about reporting?
Would you say it's best practice when reporting for a client to just ask them, what do you want to measure?
Yes.
That way you're not coming up with these metrics that they don't even maybe know about or they don't want to know about, but just gauging to see what's important for them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll either start with what we think is best, or we'll ask them. A lot of times we'll, when we're putting together the strategy, we, we're like, what's your content goals? And so that helps us figure out which metrics we want to measure. And sometimes they'll tell us what they want to measure. For sure. I definitely think, because you could say the same thing. Like, you don't need to know, everything isn't relevant. And it's just wasting time to track page visits if that's not something that matters to you. So yeah, definitely. And it might change. You might, one month you're like, we should be tracking this instead, and we don't need to track this anymore, whatever that looks like. That's a great question. Well, if there aren't any other questions, and I'm definitely open for more questions for sure, I do want to thank you. I think this was awesome, and you guys were like so engaged, and it made me super excited. But I'm Brittany. You can find me at atbsocial.com on all these different platforms at ATB Social, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can shoot me an email if you have like any follow-up questions or anything like that. But that is how to create a consistent, purposeful, lead generating content system.
Thank you so much, Brittany. This was so helpful, very informative. It really took my brain fog and helped to start to connect some dots, make some lines, and organize what's going on. So I'm excited to continue to dig in and help with the system so that I can continue on making purposeful content without feeling overwhelmed with life and being a creator. So thank you.
Of course. I'm so glad to hear that. I know it's like, I've had those times where like, being just like so burned out with content and like having to figure out like, if I'm gonna be a content business, I gotta figure this out, So yeah, and everything that like I talked about, like, is things that we like actually implement. So it's definitely things that I would say are things that personally helped me with being able to get better at it and just be consistent and see the results that we see like with our clients now. Hey.
Thank you. This will be on a replay that I'm going to send out in an email newsletter with all of our other January workshops. So thank you, Brittany, again for taking the time with us to educate us on systems that generate leads. And I will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.